Werewolves? Queen Victoria? Scotland? Let's go! Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kevin, I am a geek, and you are watching Kevin the Geek, and it is time for another Doctor Who review. Now, if you are new to my channel, I do Doctor Who content every Wednesday, and I do a New Who Doctor Who review, where I go back and review all of the episodes of Doctor Who. We started this series last week, so go back and watch my review of New Earth from last week, or you can also go back and see the entire first season of the reboot of New Who. But for now, we are going to Scotland. Now, I really like the idea of going and introducing a werewolf into Doctor Who. It's something that gives you a bit of action, but also allows you to explore the supernatural and maybe put a bit of a Doctor Who spin on it, which I really enjoy. And I liked that they brought in Queen Victoria. Now, I'm sometimes a little bit hesitant with historical episodes when you include an actual celebrity or a proper historical figure. And sometimes I think you can get too hung up on, oh my god, this is Queen Victoria, or this is Charles Dickens, or whoever. And sometimes it is better to do a historical episode like you did last season out with The Empty Child and The Doctor's Dancers, where it is historical, but you don't focus too much on a historical figure. That being said, I think having Queen Victoria was actually quite a nice addition, and I thought she was portrayed really well. Although, the one thing that I didn't quite like with the portrayal and the dialogue featuring Queen Victoria was the whole running joke with the Doctor and Rose about how they want to try and make Queen Victoria say, "We are not amused." Because that is a bit of a folk legend that Queen Victoria said those kind of things. And in actual fact, she didn't. And it, a lot of historians, and also Queen Victoria's granddaughter herself, in, I think, the 1970s or something, she actually came out and said it was never actually said by Queen Victoria. So, that was it was funny, I think, at the time when I first watched this episode, because I was led to believe that was something that was done. But I've done my own research and I've looked into it, and obviously people who are much cleverer than I am have also done their own research and concluded that she never said that. It's just a myth. But you have the issue where you have these kind of monks who are the kind of brotherhood of the wolf, and they want to get the wolf onto the throne. So they hatch this plan to basically get Queen Victoria bitten. It's an interesting idea, but it is really there to kind of push a werewolf into the picture, really. So their motives wasn't really the best in that regard. Obviously, this episode gave David Tennant an opportunity to use his natural Scottish accent, which I didn't realise, again, when I first watched this, that he was actually Scottish. And I thought he was putting on a very strong accent. As it turns out, he is Scottish, putting on an incredibly good English accent all the time. So, huge props to David Tennant there. But I love his wonderment and his excitement, and he rightly gets called out by Queen Victoria that, he finds danger and things exciting. But he has a wonderful dynamic with Queen Victoria. He has a great relationship with Rose. And even them having their little moment at the start that they're planning on going to see a concert in the 70s of Ian Dury and the Blockheads. That's just fantastic. It shows that they do a lot of fun stuff in their spare time. It's not always, going around and fighting aliens and preventing the world from ending. So that was a nice way to show their relationship and their dynamic between the two of them, which is something I don't think you really got to see that much with Chris Eccleston and Billy in the first series. Now, I did find that Rose was a little bit lacking again in this episode. She was a little bit more of a passenger and really was there to kind of run alongside the Doctor and not really do a lot or add a lot of value herself. But she does have a really nice moment when she gets captured and she's in the cellar, and you know, again, she's showing that she's starting to take on this little bit more of a leadership role, and she's taking on board and seeing a lot of the things that the Doctor says and does, and is able to kind of coax the alien within the werewolf to talk to her and actually respond in a good manner, better than these simpleton Scottish people. But the supporting characters at the core were really strong. The main two, you would say, would be Sir Robert and Queen Victoria herself. Even Queen Victoria's right-hand man, the captain of the guard, he had his moments. He did at first seem to be a little bit of a jackass, but he was actually quite gut-wrenching, I think, when he actually died at the hands of the werewolf in the end. And he's very, very much a traditional soldier who will literally defend his queen to the death. And Sir Robert initially, similarly, kind of felt a little bit weak at the start, a little bit too nervous, which is kind of understanding, you know, knowing that he's kind of getting forced into this with the threat of his wife being eaten. But he kind of grows and grows and becomes stronger and more confident, and again, similarly to the captain, sacrificing himself to do his duty for the Queen. But the Queen herself, she was really good. The minor instances with the whole "we are not amused" thing aside, she was really good. And she had some wonderful dialogues with the Doctor. Now, some people kind of don't like it. I personally love the werewolf in this one. I love the design of it, and actually the special effects for it looked really good. I like that they focused on doing not too much where you saw the werewolf itself. You did a little bit more through the eyes of the werewolf. That kind of helps them budget-wise. They're not having to spend too much money on creating the actual CGI werewolf. But it put a nice tint onto the camera lens, and the actual effects of when someone gets eaten, it was graphic enough that it would probably be quite scary to children, but at the same time, like, it wasn't like watching Jaws, for example, and you see loads of blood and everything like that. It's a little bit of a quick cut. So I quite like those effects, because if you're going to do a situation with the werewolf and it's going to attack and eat people, you need to know that there is some consequences, and you don't really want to see it happen off screen. But they did really well with the werewolf as well to make sure that it was paced out as well. It wasn't always attack throughout the episode. They did the kind of slow build up. They did the attacks, backed off again, and so it just gave a really good pace to the whole episode as a result of that. Personally, I love the music in this episode. It's really atmospheric and really puts you in the scene, and this one was done really, really well by Murray Gold. And balance-wise, musical balance-wise, so much better. One of the best ones in a long time, really, for this episode. Like I said, with the special effects for the werewolf, they were really, really strong. I still don't get, to this day, is what the whole instance was with in the opening of the scene, where you have the monks and doing all this whole sort of flying kung fu stuff. They're flying over them in the air, which actually, it's something I saw brought up in a comments thread on a Doctor Who group I'm part of. I have a theory. I believe that all of the monks have all been bitten by the werewolf. But because obviously what the Doctor's saying is it takes so many years for the wolf gene to sort of mutate and turn a person into an actual werewolf, I think this is probably one of those earlier versions of the werewolf gene, which probably has given them extra strength and powers, maybe, so they're able to do all this kind of stuff. but without the end product of them really becoming an actual werewolf. That's a little theory on my part. You let me know whether you agree with that, but I think that's an interesting theory, and at least gives some reason why they may be doing it, because without it, I mean, it was a good-looking scene, don't get me wrong, but otherwise it's a bit weird. The dialogue of this episode was fantastic, and the one that always sticks in my mind was the one when they're talking about the ghosts and the idea of a ghost story. And when Queen Victoria says...
And that's the charm of a ghost story, isn't it? Not the scares and chills, that's just for children, but the hope of some contact with the great beyond. We all want some message from that place. It's the Creator's greatest mystery that we're allowed no such consolation. The dead stay silent. And we must wait.
And I think that's a really interesting thought process to have. Because for me, whenever I think ghost stories, it's literally designed to scare you. But the idea that you just want to believe that there may be the souls of your dearly departed who may still be around and may still be able to communicate with you in some way, I think that's a really lovely thought process to have. I don't believe it. I don't believe that there are supernaturals or ghosts or anything like that. And don't get me wrong, I would love nothing more than to have another really good conversation with my nan, who I sadly lost last year. But I don't believe they exist. But it's a nice thought to have. The costumes and the set of this piece, this is one of the things I love about historical episodes. You can do so much more, because you can't get away with doing modern clothing in a historical episode. You are going to have to make an extra effort to actually have historical items of clothing. And I just love the Victorian period so much. I love the kind of gentlemanly kind of manner in which they wore their outfits, and I love all these big old houses that are full of woods, and they're just beautiful. And they did a really great job of having this lovely big mansion out in the Scottish Highlands. And of course, the costume for Queen Victoria was wonderful as well. Really, like the moment you saw her, you knew exactly who she was before the Doctor introduced her. And that's the mark of a good episode. When you can have someone like that who is so iconic, you don't need to say their name. You just know who they are instantly. So great job there. Okay, now that the review is over, let's work out the scores. So this episode scores a grand total of 77 marks out of 100, which means that it is a B+ episode. This is an episode that I think really unfairly gets slated by some Doctor Who fans, personally speaking. I love this episode, and it always remains one of my favourites. Yes, there are things wrong with it. Like the whole thing at the start, when all the rest of the household get captured, and then the monks whip off the cloth of the cage, which is featuring the boy who later turns into a werewolf, and the wife of Sir Robert lets out this scream of terror. Like, when you see that, you're thinking, oh my god, she's seeing a werewolf. But no, in reality, she is literally seeing a boy. Why the hell would you scream at a little boy? Yeah, like I said, there are some things wrong with it, don't get me wrong, but I think this is a great episode, and this could be definitely one of the best episodes of this season. In reality, there is at least one story I am certain is going to score higher, but this is definitely going to be in the top half, I think, of the series. But let me know your thoughts. Please drop a comment down below, and remember to subscribe to the channel if you're new. But for now, my name's Kevin, I am a geek, and you have been watching Kevin the Geek. Goodbye.